hit or miss, where I'm going to take on some questions and tell you whether or not these are hits or misses, right? So here's an example. Will Ryan Day recover from another loss to Michigan? That's a hit. Yes, he will. Direct hit. You look at the roster that they put together, okay? All right, Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson, Emeka Egbuka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Ennis, Jeremiah Smith. I know everybody want to be like, but who's the quarterback? The quarterback is Will Howard or Julian Sayin or Devin Brown or Aaron Nolan. Take your pick. They're all good. Now, I think they're going to go with the grad transfer because you usually go with experience over age unless that age or that inexperience is as talented or seemingly as experienced as your experienced player, right? It's a long way of saying if Julian Sayin or Aaron Nolan or Devin Brown can beat out Will Howard, would not shock me, right? That said, the defense is still the defense, and the defense was really great at Ohio State last year. It's just we couldn't start talking about it in a real way because we were still trying to figure out why they couldn't run the ball. And why it was just Marvin Harrison Jr. or bust for them, knowing what that wide receiver room is like. And it's really about the offensive line, which I don't think was that great running the ball. I think they'll be better this year. I don't know if they'll be great, but you add Caleb down to an already pretty stacked defense. You get guys coming back because they haven't won a Big Ten championship. They don't have a set of gold pants. They don't have a national championship. You have a generation of player at Ohio State right now that is playing for it all. So in that way, Ryan Day and his team are both playing for their futures, right? I don't think it's funny to point this out, but I'm going to point this out. When Micah Parsons and C.J. Stroud do their thing, what C.J. Stroud asks is, did you ever beat Ohio State? And then what Micah Parsons asks is, did you ever beat Michigan? Yo, it be hitting like that, right? And CJ is that dude. You know how much I love CJ, right? This is a CJ positive show. This is a Justin Fields positive show. I don't know what the hell y'all think about having that man turn kicks. That's a quarterback. You better tell Russell Wilson to sit down somewhere and give those keys to Justin Fields. That said, you want to be that team that finally beat Michigan. I'm sure Ryan Day does not want it on his resume that he went out with loss to Michigan. Like the John Cooper noise is just getting a little too loud for me. But I think he's going to get on the good foot, and they got this roster that's outstanding. He's added Chip Kelly to a really outstanding staff already. They're playing for it all. It's a 12-team playoff. It's there for them. I think that this is going to be a hit. The next question before us is this Penn State's year to finally make the college football playoff? I'm not sure. I'm going to say hit tentatively. And the reason I'm going to say hit tentatively is because there are 12 teams that are going to earn selection, right? 4 Power 5 conference champions probably, right? And then a group of 5 highest ranked champion. And then we're going to have 7 at-large bids, right? Assume one of those bids gets eaten up by Notre Dame as an independent, right? I think there's still room for Penn State, for USC, for the runner-up in the Big Ten championship game to get there. It's also really helpful to Penn State. They ain't got no divisions no more. You know what I mean? Like the thing that was holding Penn State back is they had Ohio State and Michigan in their division, and that's in a year in which Michigan State happened to not be good. And there are some years in there where Michigan State was absolutely good. And yet and still, Penn State just can't get to the promised land of the college football playoff, not because they're not good, but just because they're not better than Michigan or Ohio State. And it's a 4-team playoff. As cool as that is, and as cool as I thought it was going to be to get Penn State in there, they just couldn't get there by getting into the Big Ten championship game and then perhaps getting a win meaningfully. And then they go to the Rose Bowl and they be able to beat up on a Utah team that didn't have no Cam Rising, right? Like it's hard to say that James Franklin is doing a bad job because he's not. He's not. He's doing an excellent job. It's also hard to say that he has fulfilled expectations at Penn State because he hasn't. The expectation at Penn State is to win the conference championship and to play for national championships. And Penn State ain't done that in some time, right? But neither has USC. Okay? Matter of fact, Oregon has more history in the college football playoff than USC and Penn State. And Oregon was basically born yesterday as a football program. I mean, I know they've been around for a long, but you get my point here. There wasn't nobody thinking about no Oregon until the early 2000s, and that's only because somebody had the bright idea to put Joey friggin' Harrington on the cover of NCAA 02. I still, to this day, put me on the cover. I ain't been on the cover. Why are we putting Joey Harrington on the cover of NCAA? Huh? Why were we doing that? Now, we ain't done that with EA Sports' College Football 25, but get my point here. Wasn't nobody thinking about that. And then Chip Kelly came through with Mark Helfrich and so forth, so on. And we got Marcus Mariota. We get national championships, games, right? We can't get Michael Dyer down. we get Gus Malzahn showing up out of nowhere. But point here is Penn State tentatively hits because I think that they could be one of those 3 or 4 best Big Ten teams. And we're probably going to put the 4th best Big Ten team in before we put in, say, the 4th best ACC team. Because right now we think more of the Big Ten than we do of the ACC, more of the Big Ten than we think of the Big 12 for that matter. So yes, I think is the answer, but he's going to need Drew Aller to get it together. Like, I understand your frustration if you're a Penn State fan about how we talk about Drew Aller, because like I know, he got the goods, right? He's talented. It's all there for him, and he's chippy enough to go out there and do it, but he ain't look like the dude that can get it done. Like, he got a howitzer for an arm, but he's not accurate, and even then, they were afraid to let that man throw the ball down the field. Now, I would also not be afraid, but I would certainly run the hell out of Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, try to get that man one-on-one in play-action passes, maybe hit somebody down the field, but that wasn't there last year. This year, it's got to be there. I understand that you're also turning over both your coordinators, right? But it's got to be there this year. Andy Kotelnicki got to figure it out. Tom Allen got to figure it out. You have to figure it out with Drew Aller, and you have to figure it out with that running back field that I think could be generational for you, and you got to find a way to stop people on defense. Even at Penn State, where everybody's pulling the same direction, it's difficult to do. So I'm as interested as you are to find out if my hit tentatively pans out later this year. Okay. Third question, final question in our hit or miss segment today. Are K-State and Oklahoma State undervalued as Big 12 championship contenders? Yes, they are. That's a hit. I think Kansas State is perennially undervalued. As a matter of fact, if I'm picking stocks, right, I'm probably going to pick up Kansas State on general principle, because Kansas State is going to overperform people's expectations because they don't think nothing about Manhattan, Kansas. They got jokes about Manhattan, Kansas. They got jokes about Kansas State. Now, some of this is Kansas State's doing because you still got a group of people that remember when Kansas State was not just bad, but god awful bad. I'm talking about the 80s. Just go look up the win-loss records in there. You're going to have a hard time finding some wins there. But Bill Snyder stuck it out, made it work, turned that team into a program into the kind that can win a Big 12 championship and play in New Year's Six bowls. Chris Kleiman has basically brought that back, right? Where you're expecting Kansas State to be there, but I'm always expecting Kansas State to be good there. And they were showing that in the Pop-Tart Bowl against North Carolina State with the underclassmen at quarterback in Avery Johnson, right? Because Will Howard got into the portal. And then you're adding back DJ Giddens, who I think can be a 1,000-yard rush for you. You add another great running back, Colorado, and Dylan Edwards. You're going to have dudes, and that offensive line is always going to be strong there because Chris Kleiman puts such an emphasis on it. As a matter of fact, he takes great pride in saying the offensive line runs my locker room. As skill players, you get to play because the offensive line allows it to be so, and that's really the sign of a cohesive program because offensive line don't get no stats. Their stats are pass stats, how many sacks they allowed, how much rushing they do. And if you got to get into a game that's nasty and you got to get into a game that's gritty, you need to be able to run the football. So you need to have an offensive line that can look around and say, get on our back, boys. We're going to carry you here. And playing in Manhattan is not easy. I mean, we make jokes about it being an ag school, but I always tell the story that I was up there in 2013 when Trevor Knight was quarterback. And Tyler Lockett was torching. And it was cold. It was so cold that the window that they got at Bill Snyder Family Stadium for the press box was freezing my toes. Like my toes were turning blue inside of their socks. And them boys was out there playing in it. Now, they lost that game because Trevor Knight learned how to run the zone read with Brennan Clay all of a sudden. But you get my point here, right? It ain't easy to play up there. And now they got a guy calling the offense that I really love in Matt Wells. Like, I think he is really one of the great play callers and head coaches that we've had. He was as an analyst at Oklahoma, and he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Kansas State. But they're going to find a way to move the football. Can they stop people in that league? And I think they're going to be. Because if you're talking about who's good in that league, you're talking about Oklahoma State, Kansas State, Utah. I keep going down the list, Kansas, right? I think Oklahoma State's undervalued here because Oklahoma State's going to return 21 starters, right? Not the least of which is Alan Bowman, who threw for 3,000 yards. Another in Ollie Gordon, who not for nothing had 2,000 yards all purpose and 1,700 yards on the ground. Now, he got stopped, stymied, stamped out in the Big 12 game. But before that, he was going for like 281. You know what I mean? Like in games. He had 6 straight games of 100 yards rushing or more. If the offensive line holds up, they're going to be tough. They're going to be really tough. And as much as, I don't always have nice things to say about Oklahoma State, you are going to take them seriously if you are a Big 12 team because they are right there. Like, it would not shock anybody to listen to this to know that Oklahoma State wins the Big 12 championship. Nobody. I also think that it's about how do you play against how you play against teams like Kansas State, like Kansas, like Iowa State, who could also be there, like Texas Tech, who could also be there. 12 through the first 12 of the 16 in that league, I can see any one of them winning the Big 12 championship. But I think if you're talking about the national landscape, both Kansas State and Oklahoma State are going to be undervalued because one of those teams probably going to make the college football playoff as an at-large or even as a conference champion. And then how are you going to stack those up against some others, right? And that means that one of those teams could be there to host a playoff game. And not for nothing, but I like to think that Manhattan and Bo Stillwater would show out if they had a nationally televised playoff game to play in, right? To say nothing of what Ollie Gordon might be. So that is our hit or miss. Really excited about that. We're probably going to run that one back more than once because, this is fun. This is fun. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.